I have just finished recording a session with Nino Fincher, who I'm about to introduce you to. But this session is going to be one that you are going to be amazed by. Buckle up, because you're going to find out how you can change the way you think quickly and make an impact on your life, your leadership, your family, and even your eternity. Enjoy this episode with Nino Fincher. Welcome to the Leveraging Success Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Gerhardt. Every time that we're together, I want to help you work less, make more, and through the freedom that you gain and the margin that you start to store up, you're going to be able to use that to be an incredible husband, wife, parent, and most importantly, an incredible kingdom leader, living the life mission that God put you on. I am so excited and thrilled to introduce our special guest today, Nino Fincher. Nino is a rapid transformational therapy expert on anxiety and PTS. Her rapid therapy and coaching clients include teens, CEOs, veterans, moms, athletes, royalty, and other therapists worldwide. She's an author and a mom. Nino's purpose and passion is helping emotionally paralyzed people get unstuck and move forward personally and professionally. Now, Nino has her master's degree in counseling psychology from Dallas Theological Seminary. Nino is originally from the country of Georgia and is married to Dr. Tim Fincher and has 2 young adult sons, where they live in the DFW area. Nino splits her time mainly between Dubai and Dallas as a public speaker and helps individuals and groups through rapid transformational therapy and coaching. You can find out more about Nino at www.ninofit, that's NINOFIT.com, ninofit.com, to explore her therapy, services, and writing. Join me in welcoming Nino Fincher. Nino, I'm so glad that we're getting to do this together. Welcome.
Very exciting. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, man. We've been friends for a while now, and I'm so glad that we could have this conversation. You know, when we talk about important things for leaders, in the master's program, we always talk about body, mind, soul, and spirit, and that power core of the 4 parts of us, each of those 4 core parts have a culture in and of themselves, meaning that all 4 of them can have individual beliefs, individual thoughts, and agendas. Right. And so because all 4 of those are working, we're working to bring them into alignment with the Father, that the understanding, assumptions, belief systems that all 4 of them are operating under are healthy, strong, and that they see us as the Father through Jesus sees us. Yeah. And so that ability to really have a strong mind is a critical thing for the leader, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, if the problem with any industry, whether it's mental health industry, medical industry, fitness industry, is that oftentimes the human is dissected and the issues are dealt with separately, but that's not how we're made. We're not compartmentalizing things. We are designed as a whole human, and a lot of the times things either trickle down or are an issue that affects all the other parts. And so it makes sense to deal with things holistically. So absolutely. If you're dealing with people, you need to deal with the whole.
That's interesting, because if you think about holistic medicine, right, is that a pain in my head may have something to do with something in my legs even, or a lack of strength somewhere. And so we have to look at the whole system to be able to create that. And that's what you do. Could you tell us a little bit about RT, what it is and how it works?
Sure. I do want to mention something that's really funny. One of my certifications actually is through Cooper Institute in personal training. And oftentimes, you know, if a client used to come and say they had issues with their traps, you want to look at the heels and the calves. And it's the same about everything else. You know, RTT stands for Rapid Transformational Therapy. It's a method that combines essentials of the three very significant fields of science, and that is neurolinguistics, and that's the part that is based in the science of that talks about the neuroplasticity of the brain, or the capacity of the brain to change and transform. Hypnosis, which is what allows you to bypass the conscious mind and get to the root of the issue, which oftentimes is stored subconsciously and we react to out of the subconscious. And then cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the oldest, I should say, as far as we know, and the oldest one developed and mostly is practiced in the psychology field. So the combination of those three allows for a very rapid transformation, because you can quickly get to the root of the problem that is a presenting issue in a lot of the clients.
Wow. So by nature, titling it rapid, I guess the expectation would be that very quickly you're able to get to root cause, or does that really depend on the clients that you're working with? I mean, how does that work?
Well, you've probably heard us saying that the counselors have, how do you change a light bulb? Have you ever heard that?
No.
And the response is the light bulb has to want to change. So you can't, I mean, if the client comes and pays you money, expects that magic is going to happen without them participating in their own recovery, you can't really expect a whole lot. But for those who are actually committed to the process and are genuinely interested in getting involved in their own well-being, then RTT allows me as a therapist to get right to the issue that is causing the behavior that's unwanted or the transformation that is hoped for. And I haven't really had, through RTT specifically, any of the clients that I've worked with more than 3 sessions, which is extraordinary.
Wow.
Now, I do coaching, and coaching is a slightly, it's a different system. So I spend more time with my clients through coaching, and because we do different things. But as far as RTT, that's the maximum number of sessions that I've done.
Okay, so that blows me away, but I think if I understood you right, that makes sense. If I understood you right, what you're saying is the fixing part of things, RTT, is rapid, and that 1 to 3 sessions gets things moving so that those things are moving in the right direction and on their way to being fixed. And then coaching, as I understand, and the way that I do coaching, I would imagine that's the accelerant to build more strength so that the whole system is getting stronger, not necessarily fixing things, but building stronger systems. Is that right?
It could be. I can tell you specifically about what I do. So I work with the veterans a lot, and a lot of the veterans struggle, unfortunately, with depression. I've had clients who, just recently, a young lady, she's 24, she's been in and out of therapy since she was 13 years old. And she's dealt with depression, ADD, trauma that she couldn't recover from, negative thoughts. So it was a gambit, a whole lot of things. And I did 1 session with her, and this actually was a year ago, and I'm still getting emails from her saying, I can't believe what happened. I feel like the weight is lifted, and I'm so excited about my life. And one of the statements she made in the letter was, I used to think that if I make it to 24, I then possibly will think about this and that and the other. And she has celebrated 24, and now she's on her 25, and her perspective is completely different, because RTT has allowed me to help her transform her thinking, align her emotional state with that thinking, and then the body just follows, because the body has no choice but to fall in line.
No, I'm so excited to talk to you about this, because I've seen the effects and outcomes of RTT, but I want to learn more about it. Can you talk a little bit, your journey to finding it? Did you find it at DTS when you were studying there? Did it come up later in your studies or before that? How did you find it, and where did it come from?
No, at DTS, I focused on cognitive behavioral therapy and theology, which, when combined, is just an extraordinary combination of 2 things, because you cannot deal with anything unless you look at a spiritual aspect of it as well. Whether or not you believe in God, you have to participate in it in some way. So cognitive behavioral therapy is what was taught from a biblical perspective at school, where I learned it. And then I had extraordinary mentors like Kathy Wiseman and Dr. Sani Acho. I still am so grateful for them. Incredibly effective therapists, specializing in different things. And cognitive behavioral therapy is very effective, and it's a fantastic method. It just takes longer, typically. I mean, I've had clients who have come to me saying that they've been in therapy for 9 years or for 6 years, or, you know, if you're working on the same issue for that long of a time, something is wrong with the picture, because we are designed to heal. We're designed to recover and move on. I mean, our body heals the minute you cut yourself. Your body immediately starts healing. So it's not something is wrong when you are maintaining pathology for that long of a time without any changes or transformation, in my opinion. Now, hypnosis, because it's part of the RTT, as a lot of people, my original perception of it is what you would get from the media or the films. You know, it's just that idea of entertainment hypnosis, that somebody will dangle a watch in front of you and then you'll go hugging fire hydrants for the rest of your life or something. You know, and so it's an unfortunate and very inaccurate presentation of what it actually is. And so a lot of people of faith are very hesitant about it because they're unclear about what it is as well. But it's one of the most effective ways to get to the bottom of what feeds the behavior that is frustrating and keeps you in a rut. And so learning hypnosis, and then later, of course, as neuro-linguistics and neuroscience of the brain continues to develop, and we're still learning a lot of new things about it, the whole idea of neuroplasticity was so transformative, because now you no longer have to be a victim. Now no longer you have to be captive to your genes or the environment you were raised in, or you know, your thinking. Just because your father was an alcoholic doesn't mean you possibly could be too, or should be too, you know. So learning all of those things and getting to the point in my life when I thought I needed to develop further and I need to learn something further is what created that pursuit. I came across rapid therapy kind of accidentally, looking for something else completely. And I'm just thrilled to have been able to train with Marissa Peer. She's the lady who developed it. She's fantastic, and it's been such an honor to know her and to participate with her and learn from her. It's a really quite an interesting method.
Now, do you think that people stay in their problem or want to stay in it long term because they like nurturing that as something that's a wound that they identify with, and releasing that they can't see themselves not having it? And that's why rapid change may not be appealing?
Many different reasons, obviously. You know, if you want to imagine the worst possible scenario, it would be that the dysfunction or pathology feeds something in a person whereby they gain something more than they think they would gain by giving it up. Maybe it's an attention getter, and that is what they've always wanted, and they don't know how else to get it. Maybe it's something that gives them compassion from others or support from others that they don't know how else to get it. So that happens with people sometimes. Other times, people just lack one of three things, is what I usually say. You either lack clarity in thinking, you lack the skills, or you lack the tools. And you have to identify which one of those areas you need to get clear about. You know, and thinking is one of the strongholds, I should say, one of the hardest things to change, because you can change the environment, but if you put people who haven't changed their thinking into the environment, then you are setting them up to fail again.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm here with Nino Fincher. Nino is a rapid transformational therapist. Nino, you're a committed follower of Christ, and as we've been talking about, you went to Dallas Theological Seminary. Is there a spiritual element to what you're doing in the work as you discover what needs to change or how to help people change? Is there a needful work spiritually?
I think that even science has to contend with the spiritual aspect of our existence. All of the virtues that we aspire to and are interested in and seek, they're not material. Love is not material. Wealth really is not material either. Money is, but not the idea of abundance or of wealth. The mindset, I prefer to call it mind flow, because set means you're stuck, flow
Permanent.
means you're moving with it. And so compassion, all of those things, they have a tangible representation and material representation, but they're concepts that are beyond material field. And so the spiritual aspect of it is just present with everything that we want, ultimately. And I think it's short-sighted to not make an effort to see a bigger picture when you are dealing with anything that people are trying to pursue that is worthwhile and of interest to them, that has that depth and that connection. So I myself think that Christ is the source of truth. He's the source of anything and everything beautiful that you would want and you would want to go after. And so my worldview and my perception of human heart and human behavior is based in how he spoke about it. And so far it's accurate. I mean, Bible is kind of a book of if this, then that. It's a consequence. If you do it this, then the consequence will be this. If you observe how people behave, based on how he describes it, you don't have to prove anything. It's just out there. So it's very obvious. And so I absolutely think that spiritual is essential for us to think about and step back and really view everything else through as a big lens.
We target business leaders, and I want to be able to make sure we've debunked anything that may make for concern, because you've talked about hypnosis, you've talked about the need to get deep into the thought process and how do we fix these things. And admittedly, Nino, and I, just let me say that I am the product of very good psychological counseling. I have had it in my life. It has been a huge strengthening at key moments in my life, and I'm so grateful for it. But many, especially I think, men may not come into it certain. They may come in uncertain, not sure that they're going to be talking to someone perhaps they can trust, or they want to be able to get into a place where everything that's going to happen is somewhat predictable. Like, the outcomes are predictable and this is going to work for me, and I won't have a situation where I'll be exposed. And so can you help us to understand the hypnosis side of things and debunk any of that? Can you help us to understand what the process is like, so that anyone who might be entertaining this, because many of us sit, especially leaders who are lonely and are thinking, I'm all alone, I don't have anyone to talk to, I've got this problem, I feel trapped, that this kind of work is going to unlock them, to give them the strength that their leadership needs so badly.
Confidentiality is critical. And so any good, decent therapist it's a non-issue. I mean, that's a part of your ethics agreement, and that's what you get when you deal with any client as a good therapist or as a therapist. So whatever is discussed between me and my clients, it remains between me and my clients. Now, it's interesting that we're quick to go to a physician when a knee hurts or when we have a physical injury, but heart gets injured as well. We get injured on an emotional level as well. I've had clients, for instance, this gentleman, he was a CEO, he was a South African, he owned a company, and he was referred to me by a physician because he continued to go back because of heart arrhythmia. So his heart wouldn't function properly, but every test wouldn't show that it was based in some kind of a physiological problem. And so they just started trying other things. And so he and I did a session once, and that problem took care of itself because it had to do with the trauma that kept recurring in different ways that was never dealt with, that happened to this gentleman when he was, I think, 14 or 15 years old. I think giving yourself permission to go to a professional who knows how to ethically handle a concern that continues to interfere with your success, with your ability to function, with your ability to take care of your employees or take care of your family or yourself, is so common sense to me, but not to so many people, that I think it saddens me that still remains an issue. I think stigma is a big part of it, but to think about it as just another portion of what makes you human that needs to be addressed differently from what you could get from a physician who deals with the body, or a nutritionist who deals with how your body processes food. It's just, I think, how I would encourage them to look at.
Nina, I think that when we're considering it, it's a question of, am I going to have to do this for a long period of time? Am I going to be in counseling for years? And the other big question is, will it stick, or will I, get a short-term bang out of it and then be back into old cycles?
Well, if you have ever developed a habit of any kind, you know that you can maintain the habit by practicing things very easily and effortlessly once it settles and becomes a habit. If you brush your teeth with your left hand, and I asked you to start brushing them with your right hand, after about 3 weeks, it's going to become a habit, because your brain will form a neural pathway that will allow for you to literally go down that road now, instead of all the roads that you've been traveling on previously. And truthfully, any other habits, whether it's our habits with money or our habits in interacting with people, or things that we deem of significance, work the same way. So your brain functions exactly the same way, whether you're trying to brush your teeth in a new way, or whether you're trying to communicate differently. It's something that you can learn. You can direct your mind to practice, and then you can reinforce it by thinking of it in a certain way, communicating with your mind about it in a certain way, aligning your emotional state with it in a certain way, and then your body won't have a choice just to follow, but to follow. So it's true for any area or anything that you want to transform or change.
Sure. Again, I'm here with Nino Fincher. You can go to her website at www.ninofit, Ninofit, ninofit.com. Nino, I still want to get to this hypnosis thing. And here's my background, is that I am the grandson of a missionary. And as a missionary in South America, my mom, who part of her life grew up in South America, they dealt with a lot of animism and mysticism. And there was always sort of this, well, my mom was direct with me, explaining, saying, hey, if you open up your mind to stuff, the devil's going to get in there.
Right.
And so, you're praying, be specific. You're going to pray to Jesus. You're going to be, talking to God, and you're going to close the channel, right? You're not going to leave the telephone line open,
yes,
so to speak. And I think that is the backdrop for anybody perhaps that was raised in the church that may be thinking, something with hypnosis may be leading me to a place that, I don't want to go, or could be risking or concerned with going. Can you help to demystify that so that someone could understand not only the ethical strength and goodness of it, but the spiritual side that is quite good?
Sure. I'd say listen to your mom, always. Well, not always, but when she's on target, you should listen to your mom.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about hypnosis. Let's say, for instance, that you drive somewhere all the time. You go from home to work, or a familiar place, to the gym perhaps. When you first move and find that place and start driving there, you have to be very aware of what street you're turning on, what exit you're taking, etc. After some time, we don't no longer hyper focus on it anymore, because it becomes subconscious and becomes so familiar and easy and comfortable and effortless that your conscious mind doesn't have to engage at the same level. And the brain waves that are functioning at that time when it comes to that specific action are no longer in the same brain wavelength that is required for you to be hyper focused on something. So they move to another channel, so to speak.
Okay.
You're literally driving in hypnosis when you go to a place that's familiar. And so what happens when I work with my clients and do hypnotherapy, I take them from that hyper focused state. It's usually a beta wave state of brain waves, to alpha, which is a lot more relaxed state. It's something that you probably have experienced if you've done a workout and then went to a cool down and counted down and relaxed your breathing, and so you allow your body to relax so that you can help your mind focus enough to not be distracted by all the things that are interfering with it, because there's always a lot of interference. Whether you hear the sounds outside, or you see the fan rotating, or the phone beeps, etc. So hypnosis is literally allowing your body to relax, but your mind to focus on whatever it is that you're trying to highlight for it. And when it comes to spiritual issues, it's everybody, I think, has read the Screwtape Letters,
Right.
By C.S. Lewis. And if not, please do, because you will be better for it. And there's no hypnosis in Screwtape Letters, but the influence that the negative aspect of what is discussed there has on you and on your mind is so great and so potent that you don't need any kind of hypnotherapy or magic. It's just there because you're opening yourself up to the ideas and convictions and perceptions that aren't based in truth. I think it's the same with anything, really. So in hypnotherapy, I'm not the one controlling you. I'm not, you're not surrendering your control in any way. You're literally allowing yourself to relax enough and focus on something that's relevant for that specific session. And you are always, as a Christian, controlled by, or non-Christian, controlled either by the Spirit of God or by something else, whether you're in hypnotherapy or you're thinking or you're reading or you're listening to something. And so that really becomes the bottom line of what you subject yourself to. Now, I think understanding what actually happens in hypnosis and who your therapist is and what you're dealing with is very helpful. But to relieve sort of the anxiety and the fear of it, understanding how it functions scientifically, and physiologically would make a big difference. And also knowing who your therapist is would make a big difference as well. But that's true for any other sphere that you choose to work somebody within.
How prevalent is RTT now? Is it becoming widespread, and what's its growth?
I think so far there have been, I want to say maybe, I don't want to make a mistake on the number. I want to say there have been perhaps 6,000 therapists trained worldwide. It was based and originated in the UK. Marissa Peer, like I said, she's phenomenal. I love her. She started it. She herself trained under Gil Boyne, who is an amazing therapist himself. I think he was based out of California. But what she really did is she took and combined the best of what CBT, hypnotherapy, and neuro-linguistics had to offer. And neuro-linguistics is just a repetitive statements, because your mind learns by repetition of feeding your brain what it needs to hear rather than the opposite, or something that's destructive or unhelpful.
Well, I wonder about it because as exciting as it's been to see you work and to know a little bit about what's happening there, change in the medical industry always seems to be so slow, even when the data and the science seems to be pointing to results and effectivity, being that I worked in medical devices and watched, the time frame to watch an iceberg turn and see change come. It can be significant because it has economic impact. It has even foundational beliefs that can be impacted by those who have espoused different or additional or alternative beliefs. And so you're fighting all sorts of forces bringing this change in. And really, I think you need RTT to be more ubiquitous and known so that someone thinks of it. They're not asking, what is that acronym? They're saying, I want that.
I agree. I think it would be fantastic, and people are working on it. And there are other modalities and methods where some of the same systems are being used in order to help people get better. I often think about Dr. John Sarno. He was a physician, a medical professional who worked in New York, who developed a method that dealt with back pain in general. Fantastic books. I had his book here somewhere. I can't find it right now. But John Sarno, and he had so much opposition that he had to deal with that, in fact, here it is. Hang on, I found it. Move things around just for you, Jeff. So there, this book right here,
The Mind-Body Prescription.
Yes. So he was a fantastic physician. He passed away now, but he had several clinics across the country that started in New York, where he dealt with back pain for his patients. And it's so extraordinary because majority of the issues that were related to back pain had nothing to do with physiological origin. And so he started treating people differently, in handling and dealing with their trauma, and the success rate was extraordinary. And of course, he even spoke in front of the Senate. He did a lot of presentations, but he was shunned by the medical community. He was shunned by the pharmaceutical community, and a lot of people who weren't open to considering why this works. But it works for a lot of medical conditions because that aren't originated in structural or physiological problems, because your body has to respond to pain or trauma somehow. And unless it's dealt with, this is another book that a lot of people refer to. I'm sure you probably know about this as well.
The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes. Yeah. So, and basically what it says is that your body is going to express the pain that is emotional or mental pain one way or the other.
That's
and oftentimes it shows up as a physical issue, but it can be resolved that way because that's not the origin of it. So as soon as you take care of the root cause of whatever causes it, the physical problem goes away as well.
One more thing that we didn't talk about beforehand, but I think that a lot of people that are affluent have access to is therapies that may not be standard. And one of the non-standard therapies that are out there right now are centered around hallucinogenics. And from someone who's on the sideline, who's not a professional, I read about it with concern and a lot of caution.
Yes.
But you, as someone who's a professional and has a lot more understanding, could you speak to that as a legitimate or non-legitimate or concern or non-concerns that we should have with considering that as a part of therapy?
Well, as you know, for instance, marijuana has been used to relieve pain, for example, for a lot of patients who've had to deal with cancer or some of the very severe physical symptoms that have otherwise resisted and persisted for a lot of people. I think there is room for some of it, but when it becomes a substitute for you identifying what the root cause of the problem is and dealing with that, then it just becomes just like any other medication that is Band-Aid.
It's a
just
crutch.
Keeps covering, it's just a crutch, or it just keeps covering up. It's almost like if you have a rash that is caused by cancer and you keep trying to put creams on the rash or covering it with Band-Aid without cutting out the source of what causes it, you'll just keep doing it forever and ever and again, and it'll just show up in some other way. So I think, it's very interesting. I think we are complex beings, as humans, but we're not complicated. And the way God designed us is very clear. He made us in a certain way, and that's how we run. In the same way he made any other system, and that's how it runs. He made seasons, and seasons repeat. You plant, it'll grow. So it's God designed systems and functions, and that is what causes them to sustain themselves for an extended period of time. And the way he designed a human is with a spirit, a mind, a heart, and a body. And so addressing all of those parts of what makes us human can't help but transform whatever it is that we need to transform. Sometimes if spiritual issue is your issue and a problem, then you can't solve it physically. If your issue and a problem is pain in your heart, then you can't solve it, through medication. It'll cover it up, absolutely. And it lasts, and it does for a lot of people for a long time, but it will show up because you have not cut out what is causing all the damage.
It's just coping, essentially. That's
right.
all it is.
It's extending something that needs to be dealt with, at the place that it originates. And with a lot of, I just going to mention, with a lot of people and a lot of leaders, by nature, that's in their character. It's kind of what makes them, what gives them the leadership qualities is that they are tough, they resist the struggles, or they go through struggles, they are very strong, and they're trained that way, or maybe they are born that way. But also, oftentimes in their mind, that it's implied that they need to do the same with problems that are emotional, perhaps, and so you can't show your emotion. Well, when anything takes over you, and it takes you over, it becomes a problem, whether it's an emotion or physical issue or whatever. But I think there's a function to everything that we have. Emotion is one of those things. So emotion needs to be expressed and felt and dealt with until it no longer requires to have your attention. But if you suppress it, and if you hide it, and if you cover it, then we'll continue to find a way out. And you'll either find a way out physically, or in your reaction, or in your relationship that could be damaged, or the stress that you can't sustain over a long period of time, but it needs to be attended to. And I think that is one of the things that a good therapist can help you with, and then it affects not just you and how you handle your business or how you handle your relationships, but how you produce, how successful you are, how, it affects the bottom line, really. Joy. Yeah, joy, whether or not you can stay awake or function and enjoy your life, or, serve the people that you were designed to serve.
This is really good stuff. Nino, maybe as we're getting to the end, one thing that I'd love to hear is a story, maybe, of course, not breaking any confidence, but any generic story that you could tell us of anyone that has been either a favorite story for you, a favorite client, or a situation where you thought this was just incredible and it'd be really pertinent for us to hear.
I have so many favorites. I can't, but always I think of this one because this was one of my firsts, and it was so memorable. I had a gentleman who lived in San Diego, and he was a creative person, had his own business, dealt with high-level entrepreneurs and contracts, and at some point he started not being able to go over the bridges. And so there's the Coronado Bridge, which is the bridge of all bridges. And so this gentleman had to give up $50,000 contracts because he couldn't get to the client. He had to change his doctor's appointment. So his life became completely consumed by, how do I not get on the bridge? And it was absolutely extraordinary, because typically in a traditional therapy, if he came to me, I would try to find out what's the issue with the bridges. Where did that fear come from? Maybe something happened on a bridge one time. Maybe he saw a movie. Maybe, so logically I would start investigating what the issue is. Well, it had nothing to do with the bridges. His issue was the trauma that was caused by being suspended, or what his mind perceived as a suspended state. And the minute we dealt with it, bridges were no longer an issue.
Wow.
His frustration was he was so angry after the session. I remember when I did a follow-up with him, 3 weeks later, he said, I can't believe I've been paralyzed by this for almost 10 years. I can't believe everything that I had to miss out on for 10 years. I can't, he was furious that something that could be resolved so easily and quickly stopped him from so many opportunities and so many interesting things. And then, of course, we had to deal with that and just say, well, you can sit and stew and be frustrated about what happened in the past, or you can just inhale and take what you have now and enjoy and build from this. And I really love telling that story.
I think that's the perspective that anyone who wants to have an extraordinary life has, is to look and say, I don't want to live this way anymore, and I'm not going to give another moment to staying the same.
Yeah.
And the opportunity to work with someone like you gives us the freedom to say, let's get after it. Let's unlock doors and start to be the best version, the one that God intended from the beginning, to continue to live in that freedom and not allow for my mind's patterns to lock me up and keep me from those opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, the potential, we never know what the potential is. I mean, it's incredible because your God is incredible and he's unlimited. So what he can do or choose to do with you is only limited by what he's limited by. And for you to hold on to Egypt, and what was happening there, instead of giving yourself the freedom to explore and get curious about what is it that God can do if I just got out of the way. Oh, it's so fun.
Excellent. Well, I've loved talking to you. I think this is one of the most important conversations that I've had on this podcast, Nino, and that because I know how important it is for the leader to be able to unlock their mindset and really trust a God who's willing to go as far as we'll trust him for.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being on here with me today. And I want to thank everyone for joining us for another episode of Leveraging Success. I'm so glad that you came and you listened. I bet you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, I would love for you to follow this podcast, subscribe on YouTube, and don't miss an episode. I'd also love to hear your feedback on this episode. So please leave me a review. I'd love to interact with you. Or email me directly at jeff@leveragingsuccesspodcast.com and tell me what you think of this episode or the show, what you'd like to hear more of, or if you've got any questions. In fact, in the show notes, you can look at Nino's contact information as well if you would like to, ninofit.com. And finally, I have an offer for you as a listener. In the show notes, you're going to also see a 7-part e-course that I've put on called Life Mastery. You'll be getting an email from me for a 7-day period. That's all, just 7 days, one a day, that are going to give you ideas on how to master life. Hey, I'm so glad that you've been here today, working less and making more, and taking that gain to be incredible and having an impactful life that will matter for eternity. I'm your host, Jeff Gerhardt, here with my guest, Nino Fincher. Until next time, God bless you.